call the Committee on Transportation Infrastructure to order. Pursuant to Committee Rule 6F, House Rule 11, Clause 2, HF, the chairman may postpone further proceedings today on any question of approving any measure or matter on adopting an amendment in which a recorded vote of the yeas and nays are ordered. I'd ask unanimous consent that the chairman be authorized to declare a recess at any time during today's meeting. Without objection, that's so ordered. All bill and amendment texts have been distributed electronically, and paper copies are available here in the hearing room. As a reminder, the committee may use an electronic system for requested recorded votes. Today, the committee is considering an amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4183, the Federal Maritime Commission Reauthorization Act, an amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 3962, enhancing science treatment and upkeeping of America's resilient and important estuarine systems, Estuaries Act, and an amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 5301, promoting innovation and pipeline efficiency and safety, which is the Pipes Act of 2025. And finally, I'd ask unanimous consent for the committee to use an amendments roster for any items under consideration by the committee, and without objection, that is so ordered. Our first item for consideration is H.R. 4183, the Federal Maritime Commission Reauthorization Act of 2025. I'd ask unanimous consent to discharge the Committee on Coast Guard and Maritime Transportation from further consideration of H.R. 4183, and without objection, that is so ordered. I now call up the bill for consideration. Without objection, the first reading of the bill will be dispensed with. I recognize Mr. Dusty Johnson of South Dakota to offer an amendment in the nature of a substitute.
Mr. Chairman, I would offer the ANS.
Please designate.
An amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4183, offered by Mr. Johnson of South Dakota.
Without objection, the amendment in the nature of a substitute shall be considered as read and shall be considered as base text for the purposes of further amendment. I now recognize Mr. Johnson for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, it drives me crazy, as it does so many of my colleagues, that we sometimes have agencies doing their work for years when they haven't been authorized by the policymaking committee. We want to make sure that doesn't happen with the Federal Maritime Commission. The reason so many of us got on this committee is we knew it was a working committee with a chairman and a ranking member who wanted to do things the right way. Sometimes people ask me, my colleagues, how is it that in a double or triple landlocked state of South Dakota, I've taken such an interest in maritime issues? And of course, it's because every single American citizen, and of course every state, is really impacted by ocean shipping, by the ports, by maritime commerce, by supply chains in this country. And the cop on the beat is the Federal Maritime Commission. And if we don't have a functional FMC, we do not have a functional American economy. A few years ago, Mr. Garamendi of California, who's been a great partner in this work, he and I passed the Ocean Shipping Reform Act, along with so many of you. It was a huge step forward in making sure that we push back against the anti-competitive behavior of a number of foreign-flagged ocean carriers, including those that are basically run by the Chinese Communist Party. To continue that work, we've been working on the Ocean Shipping Reform Act, as well as this, the reauthorization of the Federal Maritime Commission. I want to highlight two buckets of policy wins in this bill. First off, the FMC has a really important and wildly underappreciated mission. This reauthorization reinforces that mission. It protects American shippers from unfair practices by those foreign-flagged ocean carriers by extending the FMC through 2029. It expands the FMC's advisory committees. That makes sure that we've got the expertise from the private sector there at the table so we can continue to make good decisions. And it reinforces the FMC's independent nature by making it clear that it takes a majority vote of the commission to release FMC investigative efforts to outside parties. So that's bucket one, I think, overall strengthening the commission's ability to do their job. The second bucket is the bill really helps the FMC get tough on China. We know that China is notorious for unfair trade practices. We have seen those increase in recent years. This bill establishes a formal process to report complaints against shipping exchanges like the CCP-controlled Shanghai Shipping Exchange. This way we can make sure that the FMC is able to do good investigations so we can understand exactly what is going on. It codifies the definition of controlled carrier under the Shipping Act to encompass state-controlled enterprises in non-market economies like the People's Republic of China. And finally, Mr. Chairman, it makes sure that carriers are subject to rate review standards to ensure that they are not using their government-supported positions in non-market economies like China's against their competitors by providing anti-competitive, below-cost pricing. Again, this is a working committee. We do real things here. This is a real meat and potatoes bill that strengthens the American economy and makes sure that we're getting tough on China. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm thankful to you, the ranking member, and the rest of the committee for helping with this important effort, and I yield back.
I now recognize Ranking Member Larson. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support H.R. 4183, the FMC Reauthorization Act, the ANS, that is. It's bipartisan legislation to reauthorize the Federal Maritime Commission through 2029 and clarify implementation of the Ocean Shipping Reform Act of 2022. The FMC regulates shipping practices, ensuring fair trade for importers and exporters. H.R. 4183 authorizes a 5% yearly increase in authorization through 2029. Despite flat funding in the President's budget request and reduced staffing levels, this bill demonstrates strong bipartisan support for the agency and its work to protect consumers and reduce inflation. The bill will standardize shipping data, establish the National Port and National Ocean Carrier Advisory Committees, further protect American importers and exporters, and build upon efforts to improve the resiliency of the U.S. supply chain. I want to thank Representatives Dusty Johnson and John Garamendi for their work on this bill. I want to thank Chair Graves for working together on this bipartisan ANS. With that, I ask folks to support it, and I yield back.
Mr. Ezell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Federal Maritime Commission Reauthorization Act of 2025 is a step in the right direction towards restoring America's maritime dominance in international trade. As we've heard in testimony before this committee, non-market economy nations, such as the People's Republic of China, frequently undercut American shippers by subsidizing their own companies to provide below-cost rates. This legislation will ensure that FMC has the resources it needs to continue to protect American shippers from unfair, anti-competitive practices that undermine American businesses. I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Carbajal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support H.R. 4183, the Federal Maritime Commission Reauthorization Act of 2025, co-led by Representative Dusty Johnson, Garamendi, Chair Ezell, and myself. This bipartisan bill reauthorizes the Federal Maritime Commission through 2029 and clarifies the implementation of the Ocean Shipping Reform Act of 2022. I want to thank the leadership of Chair Graves, Ranking Member Larson, and Chair Ezell for their continued bipartisan work. In 2022, we worked hard to pass the Ocean Shipping Reform Act. The clarifications of this OSRA 22 within the bill are vital to maintain a resilient and efficient supply chain. This bill strengthens the agency's authorities to ensure fairness for American shippers, carriers, and consumers in maritime commerce by cracking down on the market manipulation and unfair practices by shipping exchanges. Ocean shipping contributes over $4 trillion to the U.S. GDP. We need strong federal agencies and practices to protect our U.S. revenue. H.R. 4183 also establishes a National Ocean Carrier Advisory Committee. This committee will be responsible for advising the FMC on the international ocean freight system and how we can shape policy to make it more efficient, competitive, and reliable. This bill will greatly benefit American businesses and consumers. I urge all my colleagues to support it. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Mr. McDowell.
Thank you, Chairman. And I support this bill, which protects American carriers from unfair or deceptive shipping practices. But this bill ensures that the Federal Maritime Commission has the resources it needs to support our economy and protect the public by maintaining a competitive supply chain. However, one issue that this bill does not address is the scope and the impact of the Commission's authority when it comes to chassis provisioning. The Commission's ongoing reviews of complaints against intermodal equipment providers creates uncertainty for businesses in my home state of North Carolina. This ongoing uncertainty prevent chassis providers from investing in their equipment fleet, and it undermines long-term supply chain resiliency in the process. I look forward to continuing to work with the chairman to find a path forward that unlocks investments for IEPs in a way that is fair and equitable to shippers, carriers, truck drivers, and everyone else that contributes to a secure supply chain and strong American economy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Does anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing no one, are there any amendments? Yep, Mr. Garamendi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of our former colleagues, now the mayor of Oakland, stopped by the office and required a few moments of my time, so my apologies to you and the members here. I assume, Mr. Johnson, you have made all the comments necessary and enlightened everybody here about the wisdom of our legislation. Well, with that, the ongoing issues of trade and commerce and the way in which we support it through the Maritime Commission is before us. The update, the continued improvements that date back to the COVID shutdown. So with that, I urge our positive consideration of this extraordinary piece of legislation that's been led by Mr. Johnson and others. Thank you. I'll yield back.
Does anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing no one, are there any amendments to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4183? Hearing none, the question is on the adoption of the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4183. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed signify by saying nay. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment in the nature of a substitute is adopted. The question is now on adoption and favorably reporting of H.R. 4183 as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed signify by saying nay. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 4183 as amended is agreed to and ordered favorably reported to the House. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Our next item for consideration is H.R. 3962, the Estuaries Act. And I ask unanimous consent to discharge the Subcommittee on Water Resources and Environment from further consideration of H.R. 3962. Without objection, that is so ordered. And I now call up the bill for consideration. Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with. The bill is now considered as read and open for amendment at any point. For what purpose does Mr. Figures seek recognition?
I have an amendment at the desk.
Doesn't he?
An amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 3962, offered by Mr. Figures of Alabama.
Without objection, the amendment in the nature of a substitute shall be considered as read and shall be considered as a base text for the purposes of further amendment. And I'll recognize Mr. Figures for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a freshman member, I am grateful to have had the opportunity to work in a bipartisan way on an issue that is vital to my constituents in Alabama's 2nd Congressional District, particularly in my hometown of Mobile, Alabama. Mobile Bay, which is home to a thriving estuary program, plays an essential role in supporting our economy, our environment, and our way of life. As a child, I spent many hours out on Mobile Bay fishing with my uncles and friends and family. And so this is important to me, not knowing at the time the role that the Estuaries Act or the National Estuary Program played in allowing for the life that we were able to live out on the water. That is why I was proud to introduce the bipartisan Enhancing Science Treatment and Upkeep of America's Resilient and Important Estuarian Systems Act, or Estuaries Act, alongside my colleagues, Ranking Member Larson, Representatives Mast, Herodopoulos, Bonamici, and Lalota. And I also want to acknowledge my colleague from just next door in Mississippi, Congressman Ezell, for his work in adding the Mississippi Sound to this important program. I'm especially grateful to the chairman and ranking member for moving this important reauthorization forward in committee today. This legislation reauthorizes the National Estuary Program through 2031, providing long-term certainty and stability for 28 estuaries of national significance. Estuaries like Mobile Bay provide enormous environmental and economic benefits. They filter out pollutants and improve water quality. They serve as buffers against flooding and storm surge, which we desperately need to reduce disaster costs associated with hurricanes that frequent this part of the country. The estuaries provide critical nursery habitat for fish and wildlife. They support industries and jobs tied to recreation, shipping, and fishing. I also want to take a moment to recognize Roberto Swan, who has led the Mobile Bay National Estuary Program since 2009 and will be retiring later this year. Ranking Member Larson and I had the privilege of meeting her in Mobile just a few weeks ago. And her dedication to building partnerships and advancing science-based solutions is a big reason the program has been so successful over the last decade plus. It could not be more fitting that in the same year she celebrates her retirement, that I have the honor of introducing and leading this reauthorization. And this year, the Association of National Estuary Programs Fall Meeting will be held in Mobile, a powerful reminder of the Bay's national significance and how this program brings people together to share solutions across the country. The National Estuary Program is one of the most bipartisan and effective conservation programs in this country. It empowers local leaders, leverages federal resources, and produces actual results that communities can see and feel every single day. In my district, this means preserving Mobile Bay, a cornerstone of our local economy and a critical resource for future generations. But this bill also strengthens communities in every coastal state, not just Alabama, from the Gulf Coast to the Great Lakes. I know my fellow freshman Democrats on TNI may give me a little bit of slack for it, but I will take credit as being the first freshman Democrat to move a standalone piece of legislation in this Congress. But it does feel pretty good, and I think it is a sign of bipartisanship, the importance of recognizing real programs that are necessary and that pay off in real results. And so I urge my colleagues to support the Estuaries Act so we can advance it out of committee and ultimately get it signed into law. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Figures. I too have fished Mobile Bay. My cousin and I, we put in at just south of Point Clear there at the opening of Weeks Bay and went out fishing, and I threw up the entire day. So with that, Mr. Ezell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Congressman Figures. I really appreciate your willingness to work with us and my office very much and very appreciative. Mississippi is one of many states. And now we're the only state that hasn't had, out of the entire Gulf Coast, Mississippi is the only state that hadn't seen its estuary incorporated into the National Estuary Program. And this program is vital, but not only to the Gulf, but to numerous states that participate. The fund provides millions of dollars which are dispersed throughout the nation to ensure the protection, restoration, and nourishment of habitats. Estuaries are one of the most critical ecosystems, especially in Mississippi. The mixing of fresh water into ocean water often provides an ecosystem that is not usually found elsewhere. Adding Mississippi to this program will benefit the seafood industry, our wetlands, fisheries, recreational use, tourism, and the entire community. I look forward to working with the committee and the EPA to help Mississippi cross the finish line. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you again, Mr. Figures, and I yield back.
Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I support the Estuaries Act. It's a bipartisan bill, which I'm proud to be an original co-sponsor. I also think, Mr. Chair, your experience in Mobile Bay getting sick there underscores why we need to clean these places up. So appreciate it. I want to thank Representative Figures for the leadership on this bill. And as co-chair of the Bipartisan Congressional Estuaries Caucus, I also want to thank the other co-chairs, Representatives Bonamici, Paradopoulos, and Mast. The National Estuaries Program is an important resource for supporting locally led efforts to restore and protect the environmental health of estuaries of national significance. This reauthorization ensures continued federal support for this program, which has protected vital habitats, improved water quality, and fostered regional resilience since its creation in 1987. Now, protecting and restoring the Puget Sound, where I'm from, the nation's largest estuary by water volume, is essential to Washington State's environment, to Washington State's culture, and Washington State's maritime economy. That's why I will continue to be a champion of efforts like this act to protect these critical natural resources. I support the Estuaries Act and urge my colleagues to do the same. With that, I yield back.
Does anyone else wish to be heard? Mr. Barrett.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. H.R. 3962, the Estuaries Act, reauthorizes the EPA's National Estuaries Program through 2031 and adds the Mississippi Sound to the program. While well-meaning, the program, in my view, is outside the scope of the federal government and forces U.S. taxpayers across the country to pay for parochial priorities. Included in this program are multiple estuaries that are entirely within a single state, questioning the role of the federal government in addressing these issues. Instead, these restoration efforts should be led by state and local officials who know better the needs and constraints of the communities impacted by these programs. Moreover, we should not force others to pay for restoration efforts that those who live in the community do not prioritize enough to fund themselves. Unfortunately, for these reasons, I oppose this legislation. I yield the balance.
Does anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing no one, are there any amendments to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 3962? Hearing none, the question is on the adoption of the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 3962. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed signify by saying nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I call for a recorded vote.
We got it. Not on the ANS. In opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment in the nature of a substitute is adopted. The question is now on adoption and favorable reporting of H.R. 3962 as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed signify by saying nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I request a recorded vote.
Gentlemen, request a recorded vote as previously announced pursuant to Committee Rule 6F. Further proceedings on the question are postponed. So get everybody here, because we're not going to wait around. Our next item for consideration is H.R. 5301, the Pipes Act of 2025. I'd ask unanimous consent to discharge the subcommittee on railroads, pipelines, and hazardous materials from further consideration of H.R. 5301. Without objection, that is so ordered. And I now call up the bill for consideration. Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with. The bill is now considered as read and open for amendment at any point. I'd recognize myself to offer an amendment in the nature of a substitute. Please designate.
An amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 5301, offered by Chairman Graves.
I recognize myself for 5 minutes for a statement. First, I want to thank Ranking Member Larson, Chairman Webster, and Ranking Member Titus for their work on this bipartisan bill that promotes the safe and efficient transportation of American energy. I appreciate the efforts of all the committee members who contributed to the development of this bill. The United States is blessed with abundant energy resources, and its capacity for technological innovation remains unrivaled. The advent of new technologies and processes make it possible to safely and affordably produce and transport vast quantities of American energy, accelerating American energy dominance. The bill before us today is a 4-year reauthorization of the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration's Pipeline Safety Program and keeps PHMSA focused on its safety mission. Pipelines remain the safest and most economically efficient means of delivering oil and natural gas. This bill strikes the right balance between innovation and the safe transportation of our energy resources and ensuring that the United States remains a global leader in the production and exportation of energy. I'd urge my colleagues to support this important legislation. I now recognize Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very happy to support the Promoting Innovation in Pipeline Efficiency and Safety Act of 2025, a bipartisan bill that advances pipeline safety. I want to thank the chair of the full committee. I want to thank the subcommittee chair Webster and ranking member Titus as well for the collaboration on this bill. Since the tragic 1999 Olympic pipeline explosion in Bellingham, Washington, in my district that killed 2 boys and a young man, I've been working to ensure that hazardous products carried by pipelines stay in the pipelines. The tragedy, unfortunately, was not an isolated incident. The Pipeline Safety Trust, created in the wake of the Bellingham disaster, has been a voice for public safety, has testified before this committee as recently as February. For the last 2 years has been, they testified that the last 2 years have been the deadliest 2-year period for pipelines in nearly 15 years. In the last reauthorization in 2020, Congress included a technical assistance grant for the Pipeline Safety Trust to support local governments and nonprofits in advancing the safety of pipelines in local communities. We do the same in this bill. But in the last few months, the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, or PHMSA, has held up this grant. PHMSA should immediately release the grant to the Pipeline Safety Trust, as the law requires, and we are reinforcing this again in this bill. Meanwhile, pipeline accidents continue. A UGI natural gas explosion in West Reading, Pennsylvania killed 7 people, injured another 11, displaced 3 families, and destroyed a major employer in a small town due in part to a crack in a vintage plastic component of the pipe. An Enbridge natural gas-fueled explosion killed a 15-year-old boy in South Jordan, Utah, damaged residences and displaced families, thanks in part to a leaking pipeline made of the same plastic as the West Reading pipeline. A leaky pipe also contributed to 2 Atmos natural gas-fueled explosions and fires that destroyed 3 homes in Jackson, Mississippi, killed 1 person and injured another. The Olympic pipeline in my district had a gas line pipeline spill due to corrosion across the road from an elementary school in Conway, Washington, and nearly 7,000 gallons of gasoline spilled. The elementary school had to unexpectedly close for a period of time, and the cleanup continues. And a 65-year-old Energy Transfer pipeline spilled jet fuel into drinking water wells in a rural residential area in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Since January, households have been forced to use bottled water for drinking, cooking, and bathing during the ongoing cleanup. Let's avoid these incidents and accidents, these deadly tragedies, and protect the health and the safety of the public and the environment by passing this bill. This is why Congress does its work. This bill represents the collective ideas this committee has gathered from members, industry, and pipeline safety advocates. This bill ensures PHMSA and state pipeline safety programs have resources they need, prepares for the emerging pipeline infrastructure, holds pipeline operators accountable, and increases transparency. The bill provides $1.5 billion in funding over 4 years for PHMSA's pipeline safety activities, including an increase of $56 million for state pipeline safety programs. Additionally, the bill authorizes $450 million to repair or replace leak-prone, publicly owned and operated natural gas distribution pipelines. The bill prepares for emerging pipeline infrastructure by ensuring the pipelines built to support carbon dioxide and hydrogen infrastructure, including with bipartisan infrastructure law grants, will be governed by effective and comprehensive safety regulations. The bill requires rulemaking to ensure PHMSA oversees the safety of pipelines used for transporting gaseous carbon dioxide, including those that will support sequestration locations. It also requires a study of the safety of hydrogen blending applications and allows for PHMSA to advance a hydrogen rule. This bill holds the over 3,000 pipeline operators in operation accountable for following safety rules and increases maximum penalties for safety violations by 25%. The committee heard testimony from the Pipeline Safety Trust as well, expressing concern that additional safety considerations required by integrity management regulations are not working as intended in reducing incidents and accidents. And the bill requires the national academies to convene the nation's pipeline safety experts to evaluate whether changes to integrity management requirements are necessary and to make recommendations to improve them. Mr. Chair, we also increase transparency by promoting proactive engagement between pipeline stakeholders and the public. And I want to thank Representative Strickland from my state for her work to create an Office of Public Engagement to share pipeline best practices. There's a lot going on in this bill, but it's a bill that builds on the bill we passed in 2023, and we need to pass this bill so we can work with the other committees and with the House floor to get this bill passed and over to the Senate. The PIPES 2025 bill increases the safety of our nation's pipeline infrastructure and establishes guidelines to avoid tragedies like the explosion in Bellingham and hundreds of annual pipeline incidents. I encourage my colleagues to support this bipartisan bill. Yield.
Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Chairman Graves. I'm happy to support H.R. 5301, which I co-introduced with alongside Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Larson, and the subcommittee Ranking Member Titus. This legislation will help achieve our mutual goal of providing the American people with a safe, affordable energy. Florida, like many states, needs more energy infrastructure to meet the growing demands of population and economy. The PIPES Act of 2025 will help facilitate the infrastructure build-out by providing greater regulatory certainty to pipeline operators, which also ensuring that the energy is transported safely. I am especially pleased to that the bill recognizes the importance of technology and the role of industry standards organizations in advancing pipeline safety and efficiency. Moreover, though, this bill incorporates language from legislation I sponsored to better ensure this industry standards organization are not undermined by undue foreign influences. This bill also authorizes funding for grants to municipalities and community-owned utilities to repair and replace dangerous pipelines while prioritizing projects that address the highest safety concerns of those located in rural areas. These grants will help ensure safe delivery of energy, reduce the likelihood of future incidents, and support communities like those in my home state, Florida, that may not have the access to funding needed to replace the crucial infrastructure. Several groups and cities in my district have shared letters of support for this bill, and I ask unanimous consent that they be included in the record of letters. I ask unanimous consent that these letters I have with me from my home district be recorded as letters as part of the record.
Without objection. So ordered.
Ultimately, this legislation aligns the President's goal to unleash American energy and the Department of Transportation's core mission to prioritize safety. I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I yield back my time.
Does anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing no one, now recognize myself to offer a manager's amendment. The clerk, please designate the amendment.
A manager's amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 5301, offered by Chairman Graves.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. I now recognize myself for a quick statement. The manager's amendment makes some technical and conforming changes to the underlying bill. In addition, it includes language sponsored by Mr. Begich that would help advance pipeline safety by clarifying the use of drones and satellite technology to inspect pipeline surface conditions. Overall, these changes help advance not only the underlying bill's objective of enabling the safe and efficient transport of domestically produced energy, but also stays in line with President Trump's mission to amplify the American energy production through safe and efficient pipeline energy transportation. With that, I yield back. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the manager's amendment that incorporates amendments from Representatives Colton and Begich and makes other modifications to the bill. Representative Colton's amendment ensures that PHMSA assesses the impact of road and other transit closures due to pipeline failures, and Representative Begich's amendment helps to improve drone inspection of pipelines while maintaining equivalent safety standards. Pipeline operators can currently use aircraft to conduct visual inspections of pipelines to check for indications of leaks, intrusions on the right-of-way, and other factors. This amendment permits inspections through satellite or uncrewed aircraft as long as the same defects and warning signs can be seen. The manager's amendment also makes technical corrections to the Securing Grants program to make it easier for publicly owned utilities to replace old, leaky, and dangerous natural gas distribution pipelines. I appreciate Chair Graves, Subcommittee Chair Webster, and Ranking Member Titus' efforts for their efforts on this manager's amendment, and I urge members to support the manager's amendment. With that, I yield back.
Does anyone else wish to be heard on that? Mr. Garamendi.
Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, thank you for moving this bill along. It's extremely important. You added into this bill work that I had done in the 116th and 117th Congress dealing with geohazards. Those of us from the West Coast and certainly from California are familiar with earthquakes, mudslides, land subsidence, and other incidents that could destabilize and cause a pipeline to fail. So adding that and keeping that study in this particular bill, I thank you for doing that, and would hope that we take account of the geohazards as well as others. We've had multiple incidents in California over the years of pipelines failing, sometimes as a result of the earth moving beneath the pipelines. So anyway, that is now part of the bill and continues that work. Also, I want to thank you for picking up the issues of carbon dioxide in pipelines and hydrogen in pipelines. These are new issues that are facing us in California as we deal with the climate change and trying to remove carbon dioxide from our atmosphere, put them in a pipe, and then bury the carbon dioxide somewhere. That's a new issue, and it creates a new hazard as well as a new solution. And hydrogen is much discussed as a source of energy, and we're seeing that. I now represent 5 oil refineries in Northern California, and hydrogen is part of the discussion going forward. How to move that hydrogen is a question. Moving it in pipelines presents an opportunity as well as a problem. Hydrogen is a very corrosive element, and we have to be careful what kind of pipe that hydrogen is in and the effect of the corrosion that could occur as a result of transporting that hydrogen. My take on this is that hydrogen is extremely important. Moving it in an appropriate way through a pipeline is good, and therefore the bill as written deals with this issue. So I want to thank Mr. Chairman and ranking members and staff and others who have worked on this for moving this along. I thank you. I yield back.
Ms. Skolten.
Thank you, Chairs Graves and Webster, as well as Ranking Member Larson and Titus for putting together this great bipartisan bill. This is what this committee is known for. The Pipes Act will bolster pipeline safety, hold bad actors accountable, and safeguard our communities and environment. I'm so grateful to see the inclusion of my amendment included in the manager's amendment. This amendment is driven by my passion for helping to make sure that we can lower costs in this country. As co-chair and founder of the Lowering Cost Caucus, I'm committed to making sure that we are doing everything we can to lower costs for the American people. My amendment will ensure that in the event of pipeline failure, the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration specifically assesses the costs of shutting down roads, bridges, and other transportation systems. The American people deserve to know what this is costing them. It's especially important in my home state of Michigan, given its manufacturing roots. The operation of our public roads and other transportation systems are integral to delivering goods across the country and the world, and pipeline failures can risk our supply chain. Particularly as families and businesses face increasing costs throughout the nation, we must be thoughtful about how project failures impact our local economy. In Michigan, we are all too familiar with the cost after the 2023 incident in Livingston County. Everyday Americans shouldn't have to foot the bill if companies miss the mark, and this provision is a step in the right direction to truly understand the cost of pipeline failures on our community. Thank you again to the chairs and ranking member for including my amendment in the manager's amendment. I look forward to supporting this bill. I yield back.
Ms. Strickland.
Thank you, Chairman Graves and Ranking Member Larson and Chairman Webster and Ranking Member Titus for leading this bipartisan effort to ensure the safe movement of energy through our 3.3 million mile pipeline network. The Pipes Act of 2025 renews Congress's commitment to pipeline safety and integrity by shoring up subject matter expertise at PHMSA, investing in the next generation of pipeline workers, and laying the groundwork for more efficient solutions as our energy needs evolve. We do a lot of work here in this committee, but safety is always our top priority. Safety is how we build public trust. And what I've learned from my conversations with my constituents, as I'm sure you all have, is that pipeline safety should never be a partisan issue. This is about trust, it's about safety, and after pipes are laid. And that's why I'm pleased that my bill, the Pipeline Safety Engagement Act of 2025, was included in this bill under Section 10. My proposal elevates PHMSA's public-facing responsibilities by redesignating community liaison services as the Office of Public Engagement and the direct point of contact for the public, local government officials, public safety organizations, and pipeline operators. People often don't know where to go, and this creates a centralized location. This office is going to respond to public inquiries regarding pipeline safety, best practices, and regulations. It will also promote broader adoption of safety programs. And for example, when we think of natural gas pipelines out of sight, that does not mean they're out of mind for families, homeowners, and business owners who live and work above them. At a time when DOGE-related workforce cuts have raised concerns about federal agencies' ability to communicate with the public and keep us safe, we must reaffirm PHMSA's responsibility to reach the American people where they are with clear, accessible, and timely information. This administration says it wants to be the most transparent in our nation's history. This is one way to do that. We must make good on the promise by making sure that the American people not only know what's running under their homes and communities, but also know where they can go if they have issues, questions, or concerns. They want to know that government is in fact looking out for them. This is about building relationships, about transparency, and building public trust. I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Pope.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I want to take a moment to remember the 1994 pipeline explosion in Edison that shook New Jersey to its core. A large natural gas pipeline near the Durham Woods apartment complex ruptured, a massive fireball that shot hundreds of feet into the air. The explosion destroyed 8 apartment buildings, damaged 6 others, and displaced nearly 2,000 people. It even left a crater roughly the size of a blue whale. Miraculously, no residents perished in the fire, though 1 person tragically died from a heart attack during the chaos. Around 100 others were treated for injuries. Investigators found that the pipeline had been damaged years earlier by construction equipment with a shutoff valve miles away. The fire couldn't be stopped in time. While this wasn't the largest pipeline disaster ever, it often cites as one of the largest to happen in a highly populated area, and it had a big impact on that community. Afterwards, federal investigators pushed through a real safety improvement like creating the nationwide Call Before You Dig 811 hotline that helps prevent accidents like this from happening again. Over the past 30 years, we have seen significant advancement in safety technology. We must demand that the private sector stay up to date on ensuring that these pipelines are safe and secure. The Durham Woods explosion is a stark reminder. Pipelines carry real risk, especially near homes and schools, and we can't cut corners on safety, maintenance, and emergency responses. This is why I support the PIPE Act to continue vital progress towards making pipeline and our communities safer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Does anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing no one. Are there any amendments to the amendment? Seeing none, the question is on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Right, we'll move right on into amendments. Mr. Perry.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk.
Please designate.
An amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 5301, offered by Mr. Perry of Pennsylvania, number 159.
Without objection, the amendment be considered as read. And Mr. Perry, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. This amendment would strike Section 25 related to carbon dioxide pipelines. For the last 2 decades, there has been an aggressive effort to facilitate carbon capture and storage projects where industrial plants capture, transport, and store CO2 before it ever enters the atmosphere. Yet there has been minimal uptake in these projects because they are extremely costly and produce few actual benefits beyond regulatory compliance. It's regulatory compliance for compliance sake. In other words, but for the overbearing regulatory requirements imposed by those who seek to end the use of fossil fuels altogether, there would be little need and little value to any of these projects. Ironically, the value they actually do add is to facilitate enhanced oil recovery, which does produce market value, but undercuts the actual stated reasons for these projects. Even with the benefits, so-called, of regulatory compliance for compliance's sake, these projects are not economically viable. Rather than accept that these fantasy projects are boondoggles that have failed to catch on despite 2 decades of attempts, Congress decided the best approach was to throw helicopter money at these projects and just hope for the best. The IIJA and IRA have provided significant federal government resources to drive the expansion and completion of these projects under the misguided belief that we need to reduce carbon emissions, which I'll remind everybody is plant food. And I'll remind everybody, if you don't know, the world, not humanity, the world is in its second lowest point of CO2 in the atmosphere in the world's history right now. And the first time it happened, the world almost went extinct. Now, this has led to attempts by ethanol facilities to use eminent domain to produce pipelines that serve no purpose at all other than to produce the appearance of low carbon intensity fuels. Section 25 of this bill further facilitates these projects by taking precious PHMSA resources away from natural gas and oil pipelines and diverting them towards these projects that exist not due to market forces, but as a result of the ham-fisted regulatory burdens placed on industry by the federal government pursuant to a radical climate agenda. While industry may view these projects as the cost of doing business under this oppressive regulatory regime, the end result will be higher cost to consumers as resources are directed away from the projects that produce market value to regulatory compliance sinks, actually raising the cost, everybody. People are complaining about the cost of energy. This is why the cost of energy keeps going up. This is one of the reasons. We can stop it right now. We can stop this part of it right now. But rather than seeking to further this insanity, we should be working to eliminate these unnecessary, destructive regulatory burdens placed on industry and allow them to meet the needs of our constituents and lower their costs, their everyday costs. This is what's realized in homes as they get their electricity bills, as they pay for their gas, fuel oil, natural gas. This is how it helps drive the cost of it up. Now, this amendment would ensure PHMSA stay focused on its core mission and does not waste precious resources on projects that only exist due to significant amounts of subsidies. We want PHMSA to do its job. We've heard about the horrors. They've been outlined here in this committee today, the explosions and the devastation. PHMSA needs to be focused on that and not this garbage. With that, I urge adoption. I yield the balance, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'm opposed to this amendment Ms. Perry has offered. This committee's role is to ensure the movement of people and goods safely, not just the movement of people and goods, but the safe movement of people and goods. This amendment strikes a bipartisan provision that ensures that pipelines built to support carbon dioxide transport and sequestration infrastructure will be governed by effective and comprehensive safety regulations. You do not have to accept any science one way or the other related to climate change to support this section of the bill. The bill requires rulemaking to ensure PHMSA oversees the safety of pipelines used for transporting gaseous carbon dioxide, including those that will support sequestration locations. actions that the industry itself supports. The arguments that Mr. Perry has made about why he does not want these, does not want Section 25, could be the same arguments, he could make the same arguments against natural gas pipelines and oil pipelines, but no one on this committee is rushing to get rid of those regulations. In fact, this bill reflects a bipartisan effort working with industry and safety advocates to craft the best possible legislation that we can get to ensure the safe movement of these products, including the gaseous carbon dioxide. Now, we've authorized and appropriated incentives for building carbon capture and sequestration infrastructure. The longer it takes PHMSA to produce a final rule, the more miles of potentially unsafe carbon dioxide pipelines will be built across cities, towns, and farms. This amendment could delay that rule. The disaster that took place in Satartia, Mississippi a few years ago shows the need for PHMSA to act quickly to update these rules. I'm glad that this is an area that is in Section 25 could be an area where we can come together to reach a bipartisan solution. So there's a lot of reasons why to keep Section 25 in the bill, and I'd ask the members of this committee just as much we're supporting a bipartisan bill to take a bipartisan vote against this amendment. Unfortunately, this amendment would undo the bipartisan agreement that we have, and I urge my colleagues to oppose it. With that, I yield back.
I want to recognize myself for 5 minutes on the amendment, and I do oppose this amendment. Section 25 of the Pipes Act requires PHMSA to establish minimum safety standards for the transportation of carbon dioxide in a gaseous state. PHMSA currently regulates more than 5,300 miles of liquid state carbon dioxide pipelines for use in enhanced oil recovery efforts. So new projects may come into existence that transport carbon dioxide as a gas. In fact, the reconciliation package that we did pass included a provision that created parity for carbon capture, utilization, and storage of carbon dioxide that's used in enhanced oil recovery as a means of boosting domestic energy production. The T&I Committee, we do not have jurisdiction over energy project permitting, environmental requirements, or any other policy directly related to the siting and building of energy infrastructure. However, we do have jurisdiction over the safe transportation of this gas. And to the extent that these new projects may be coming online, there is a need to extend safety regulations in these efforts. I don't think we should set a precedent of denying safety standards for infrastructure activities that we may oppose for one reason or another. Congress clearly identified a need for this rulemaking back in 2011 when it was first authorized. With that, I would urge my colleagues to oppose the amendment, and I yield back and recognize Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I oppose this amendment establishing safety standards for these pipelines and transportation of carbon dioxide in gaseous state is an important part of ensuring reliable transportation of our nation's energy. Adopting this amendment will result in a failure to implement safety standards for infrastructure. This failure would hamper future projects by creating uncertainty due to the lack of clear safety standards. I urge my colleagues to vote no. Thank you. I yield back.
Does anyone else wish to? Mr. Garamendi.
Mr. Larson and Mr. Graves, thank you for pulling us back to the issue at hand. I have a Pavlovian response to most everything Mr. Perry says. He's just plain wrong on the issue of climate change, which was his principal argument. I suspect that in the months and years ahead, his position will be even more proven to be wrong as climate change affects the weather, affects his estuary issues and the like. The reality is that climate change is real. It is not the subject of the bill. Mr. Larson and Mr. Graves, you pulled us back to the issue at hand, but I find it just difficult to let Mr. Perry ramble on about climate change without a little bit of pushback. So that's the little pushback. I'll let it go at that. And I thank Mr. Larson and Mr. Graves for pulling us back to the issue at hand. There will be carbon dioxide pipelines. It will be carbon dioxide in pipelines, and Section 25 provides us with a framework to make sure that it's transported safely. With that, I yield back.
Does anyone else wish to be heard on the amendment? Seeing no one, are there any amendments to the amendment? Seeing none, the question is on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. The nays do have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. Chairman, I request a recorded vote.
The gentleman requests a vote on the amendment as previously announced pursuant to Committee Rule 6F. Further proceedings on the question are postponed.
Designed to unbalance Perry.
For what reasons, Ms. Skolton? Seek recognition.
I have an amendment at the desk, Mr. Chair.
Please designate.
47.
An amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 5301, offered by Ms. Skolton of Michigan, number 047.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to make sure you had it there. The Great Lakes are so essential to our way of life back home in Michigan, and they play a key role in keeping American supply chains running. I proudly represent miles of beautiful Michigan, Lake Michigan shoreline back home. The Straits of Mackinac, in particular, are important as they connect Lake Michigan and Huron and serve as a crucial waterway for the commercial shipping of iron, coal, cement, grain, and oil. Line 5 is a 645-mile pipeline that passes under the straits, and there's certainly no shortage of buzz about this pipeline back home. Industry has assured us that the pipeline is safe and necessary to meet Michigan's demanding propane needs. This pipeline also supports numerous good-paying union jobs throughout the state. However, others are deeply concerned that the pipeline poses an intolerable risk to the well-being of the Great Lakes. What we need is an independent study. That's what my amendment does. My amendment will charge the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration with assessing the safety of Line 5, as well as any potential impacts this pipeline might have on Great Lakes water quality and shipping operations. As a pragmatic lawmaker that cares deeply about the jobs and continued economic vitality of the Great Lakes, as well as a four-season angler that is passionate about protecting the pristine nature of the Great Lakes, I am committed to balancing both interests. This approach will let us lead with facts and provide clarity on how we can safeguard Michigan's waters and industry. Out of respect for the bill's bipartisan agreement, I will be withdrawing the amendment. However, I hope committee leadership will work with me to ensure that the federal government is providing the best information possible to project developers to ensure the safety of our Americans, our waters, our industry, and our Great Lakes. I yield back.
Thank you, and we'll absolutely work with you on that. We have one more amendment, and then we're going to have a vote. So make sure we have two votes. Make sure everybody gets there. Or have staff make sure your member gets there. Let's see. Next, what purpose does Mr. Fong seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Please designate.
An amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 5301, offered by Mr. Fong of California, number 026.
Without objection, the amendment be considered as read. Mr. Fong, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment would have cut red tape, removed regulatory uncertainty, and ensured that safety at refineries and gas processing plants is regulated by one agency, OSHA Process Safety Management. Currently, in-plant gas piping is regulated by both OSHA and PHMSA. PHMSA released a proposed rule in July to rectify this issue, stating that OSHA has sole authority over in-plant gas piping safety. This rule is supported by supported by energy stakeholders and utilities in the affected regions. By aligning in-plant gas piping with other pipeline regulations, this amendment would have created more certainty and a clear regulatory path for in-plant piping safety, which allows much-needed improvements to be made to protect our American workforce and surrounding communities. It is critical advancements to these facilities it is critical that these advancements to these facilities are completed to ensure that they can continue to operate in a safe and effective manner. Without regulatory certainty, safety at these facilities is subject to duplicative and potentially contradictory regulations, reducing the effectiveness of the core mission of both OSHA and PHMSA, which is to create a safer environment for our workers and neighborhoods. More work needs to be done on this amendment, and I'm dedicated to working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to rectify this issue. It is essential we stand united in protecting hardworking Americans and all of our communities. So, Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to withdraw this amendment.
Without objection, so ordered. Again, as noted, there are recorded votes to amendments requested. Let's see, we'll recess for, we'll say 5 minutes. Should do it. We'll recess for 5 minutes and then reconvene for the votes. Committee stands in recess.
So we come back.
Committee will come back to order. I now recognize, let's quiet down. I recognize Mr. Larson for a statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While members are getting seated for this vote series, I want to take a moment to welcome our newest member of the committee on the Democratic side, Representative Maxwell Frost from Florida's Fightin' 10th District. Representative Frost's background as a community organizer gives him a unique perspective on the challenges and opportunities that face our nation's transportation systems. He understands that transportation is not just about roads and bridges, it's about connecting people to jobs, education, and healthcare. It's about ensuring our communities are accessible and equitable for everyone. He's a very vocal proponent of investing in public transit, advocating for more reliable and affordable options for working families. He's been a strong voice for the women and men of transportation labor, advocating for better benefits and safer working environments as well. He's also an advocate for investing in cleaner, greener, and more sustainable transportation solutions for communities. These are the kinds of forward-thinking ideas that we need on this committee as we tackle our upcoming surface transportation authorization, and I know he'll be a great asset to this body. I want to welcome Representative Frost. With that, I yield back.
I too want to welcome Mr. Frost. Rick and I at one time were way down there at the bottom of the desk, and so you'll be up here before you know it. With that, the committee previously postponed proceedings on H.R. 3962, which is the Estuaries Act, which was agreed to by voice vote. Is a recorded vote still requested? A recorded vote is still requested. Members are going to record their vote with the electronic voting system. The chairman will be voting aye.
Ranking will vote aye.
Open the board. We're going to keep this open for just a little bit. We had people in markup in resources, and they're on their way. Has everyone been recorded that wishes to be recorded? Does anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing no one, close the board, report the result.
Mr. Chairman, on that vote, there are 57 yeas and 2 nays.
I voted 57 yeas and 2 nays. Voted 57 nays, or yeas, 2 nays. The bill as amended is agreed to and ordered favorably reported to the House without objection. Motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The committee previously postponed proceedings on H.R. 5301. First, Amendment 159 offered by Mr. Perry, on which a recorded vote was ordered, in which a recorded vote is still requested. And it is. Let's vote. The chairman intends to vote no.
Ranking to vote no.
Open the board.
What is he for? There's 3 greens. There's 3 greens up there, but it says 4.
There were 4 greens, sir. Perry, Burleson, Burchett, and Begich.
It must be the glasses. My glasses.
Have all members been recorded who wish to be recorded? Do any members wish to change their vote? Hearing none, close the board, report the total.
Mr. Chairman, on that vote, there are 5 yeas and 54 nays.
A vote of 5 yeas and 54 nays. The amendment is not agreed to. The question now is on the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 5301 as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes have it. The amendment in the nature of a substitute as amended is agreed to. The question is now on the adoption of and favorably reporting of H.R. 5301 as amended to the House of Representatives. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes have it. The bill as amended is agreed to and ordered favorably reported to the House without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Again, thank you, everyone, for participating in today's markup. I'd ask unanimous consent that each measure ordered reported today will be reported as a single amendment in the nature of a substitute, incorporating any amendments adopted without objection as so ordered. I'd ask unanimous consent that the staff be authorized to make all necessary technical, clarifying, and conforming changes to each of the measure ordered reported today to reflect the actions of the committee without objection. That is so ordered. Pursuant to House Rule 22, Clause 1, I'd ask unanimous consent that the chairman or the designee be authorized to offer such motions as may be necessary in the House to go to conference with the Senate on the legislation adopted today, or any similar measure, and without objection, that is so ordered. I'd ask unanimous consent that the chairman, after consultation with the ranking member, have authority to strike or revise any provision of measures ordered reported today that would cause a sequential referral to another committee or would cause the bill to be subject to a budget act or Rule 21 cut-go point of order. Without objection, that is so ordered. Pursuant to House Rule 11, Clause 2L, I'd ask unanimous consent that all members of the committee have at least 2 calendar days in which to file any supplemental, minority, additional, dissenting views on the legislation adopted today, and without objection, that is so ordered. Pursuant to Rule 6 of the Rules of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, I note the presence of a quorum for all actions taken on all committee business today. And with that, the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure has completed its business, and the committee is adjourned. Yes.